It began on a night when the wind sounded wrong. Not loud, just wrong, as if the trees themselves were whispering in a tongue that didn't belong to this small American neighborhood. Birchwood Estates was the kind of place where every lawn was measured, every mailbox matched, and every neighbor pretended to smile. The HOA ruled like silent kings. Letters for overgrown grass, fines for wrong-colored fences, and warnings for anything out of harmony. Then, one autumn evening, Amanjeri moved into House 17. No one knew much about her, except that she was from somewhere in Africa. A widow, maybe, quiet, always covered in long, patterned wraps, gold rings around her wrists that jingled softly when she walked. The moving truck came at dusk, her boxes marked with strange symbols that no one understood. By morning, her yard smelled faintly of herbs and smoke, a scent that drifted and lingered like memory. At first, people whispered, "She's odd. She's polite, but her eyes, something about her eyes." By the end of the first month, the HOA had already sent her 3 letters. Remove the red cloth hanging from her porch. No open fires in backyard after 6 p.m. All decorations must match community standards. Amma never replied. She just smiled, a small, tired smile, and kept her red cloth. It was on a cold Friday night when everything changed. The HOA board gathered in the clubhouse. 5 people around a polished table: Greg Myers, the HOA president, Linda Crawford, his nosy vice, and 3 others who never questioned authority. Greg started tapping his pen. "House 17 again. She's violating code number 4, number 9, and number 22. We'll need to escalate." Linda smirked. "Maybe she doesn't understand English. I heard she burns things in her yard. Animals, maybe." They laughed, quiet but cruel. Outside, the wind pressed against the windows. At 8:15 p.m., the door opened. Amanjeri stood there, holding the last letter in her hand. She didn't knock, didn't speak at first, just looked at them, one by one, her face calm, eyes too steady. Greg straightened. Miss Njeri, we're in a private meeting." "I know," she said softly. Her voice carried a weight, low and even. "You sent this." She placed the letter on the table. The room fell silent. Her accent was musical, yet sharp. "I asked for peace," she said. "You sent threats." Greg forced a smile. "Ma'am, we're just enforcing rules. If you cooperate, there's no issue." Amma tilted her head. "And if I don't," Linda chuckled, "then the HOA takes action. We can fine you, even remove you if necessary." Amma's lips curved, not in amusement, but in something else. "Remove me?" The lights flickered once, then again. No one spoke. Amma reached into her wrap and pulled out a small pouch. Leather, aged, tied with a red thread. She placed it beside the letter. "This," she said, "is my answer." Greg frowned. "What is that?" She didn't answer. She simply whispered, a sound that wasn't English, nor any language they knew. The air grew heavy. The clock on the wall stopped ticking. Linda felt her skin prickle. One of the men coughed, uneasy. Then Amma looked up and said clearly, "You wanted harmony. You shall have it. When the last leaf falls, none of you will sleep in peace." And she left. The HOA laughed it off, calling it drama. Greg even joked about it over beers. "Guess we've been cursed. Better mow our lawns quick." But the next morning, his dog wouldn't stop barking, staring at the front door, growling at something no one could see. By Monday, Linda Crawford woke up to find every plant in her garden dead. Leaves blackened overnight, soil dry like ash. By Wednesday, the security cameras in the clubhouse stopped working. Every night, Around 3 a.m., a faint voice could be heard through the speakers, whispering, the same rhythm Amma had spoken. Neighbors started avoiding House 17. Even kids stopped biking near her fence. They said they'd seen someone else standing in her yard, a tall, dark shadow beside her, eyes like embers. Greg tried to confront her again. When he knocked, the door creaked open on its own. Inside, candles burned in a perfect circle. Amma sat in the center, humming softly, her eyes lifted toward him, calm, knowing. "You think power comes from your papers and rules," she said. "But your laws do not reach old spirits." Greg stammered. You can't threaten us." "I didn't threaten," she said, voice almost kind. "I promised." He backed away. The next day, he called it an emergency HOA meeting. That meeting never happened, because the next morning, Greg's wife reported him missing. His car was found still running near the lake behind Birchwood Estates. No footprints, no struggle, just the driver's door open and a faint smell of burned herbs inside. When police questioned Amma, she smiled. "I told him to respect the land," she said. "But some people only listen when the land answers back." No one could prove anything. But that night, the neighborhood lights flickered again. All at once, every house, and for a brief second, every security camera captured the same frame. Amma and Jerry standing at her porch, and behind her, a tall shadow, with hands resting gently on her shoulders. From that night onward, no one ever mentioned House 17 in the HOA meetings. Fines were quietly erased from records, and every month, fresh flowers appeared on Greg Myers's doorstep, though no one ever saw who placed them there. But sometimes, when the wind blows from the east, the old residents swear they still hear a woman's voice, calm and distant, whispering words they don't understand. The first scream came at 2:14 a.m. It was sharp enough to cut through the silence, a sound that didn't belong in the quiet, polished neighborhood of Birchwood Estates. People woke, sat upright, confused. Dogs barked. Lights flicked on behind curtains, but by the time anyone stepped outside, the street was empty. Just the hum of street lamps, the soft hiss of wind through the trees, and a smell of burned sage. The next morning, no one talked about it, not openly, but whispers moved through the air, faster than any rumor ever had. They said the scream came from House 4, where Linda Crawford lived, the same Linda who had mocked Amma at that meeting. When her friend knocked at her door later that day, Linda answered, pale, trembling, eyes swollen red. "I didn't sleep," she whispered. "Something kept walking in my room." Within days, strange things started to happen across the neighborhood. Sprinklers turned on by themselves at midnight, even ones not connected to water lines. Mailboxes slammed open and shut for hours, though no wind blew. HOA letters, every single one that had ever been sent to Amma, reappeared on Greg Myers's porch, now damp and smeared with ash. And every night, around 3 a.m., a faint sound moved through the air, like chanting, slow, rhythmic, a voice the neighbors couldn't place. By now, some families were talking about moving out, but the HOA vice president, Linda, insisted they stay calm. "It's just coincidence," she said. "Stress. Guilt. But guilt doesn't make shadows move against the light. And stress doesn't make your own reflection smile back at you when you're not smiling." A week later, it was Ethan Grant, one of the HOA board members. He'd been the one who had laughed hardest that night at Amma's curse. His wife told police She woke up to the sound of water running. Ethan was gone. They found him in the backyard pool, sitting cross-legged at the bottom, eyes open, calm, as if he'd chosen to stay there. No signs of struggle, no footprints, just the faint trace of black dust floating on the surface of the water. The HOA went silent after that. No meetings, no warnings, no rules, just fear. House after house went up for sale. No one bought them. Realtors stopped answering calls once they heard the address. And yet through all of it, and Jerry stayed, calm, silent, untouched. When Detective Marcus Hall arrived, he didn't believe in curses. He was the kind of man who trusted evidence, not whispers. But as he stood outside House 17, something in the air felt off. The house seemed too quiet. Even the birds avoided the roof. He knocked. The door opened by itself again, slow and creaking. Inside, he found Amma sitting near her window, grinding herbs into powder with a stone bowl. She didn't look up. "Detective," she said, before he could introduce himself. He froze. "How did you—" "You came for answers," she said softly, "but you won't like them." He took a step closer. "I just want to know what's happening in this neighborhood." Amma's eyes lifted to his, deep, ancient, calm. "You built your houses on bones," she said, "and then made rules for the living, while the dead still waited to be heard." He frowned. "What bones?" Amma rose and walked to the back door. She pointed toward the lake. "Under the water," she whispered. "That's where your president sleeps now, and what sleeps beneath him is older still." Hall felt his skin crawl. "You're saying this is supernatural?" Amma smiled faintly. "You call it that. Where I come from, we call it justice." That night, the detective couldn't sleep. He started researching her. Jerry, originally from a small village near Lake Turkana in Kenya. Her family line was known for something, a title he couldn't translate fully: Watu wa Roho, the people of spirits, old tribal guardians who protected sacred lands from desecration. When her husband died, she left her homeland. The last record showed she sold her ancestral property, land near a burial site where the bones of elders rested. Developers had wanted it for a resort. She refused at first. Then one night, her home burned down. She fled to America with what little she had, and a small leather pouch that somehow survived the fire. As days passed, Birchwood estates began to rot from the inside out. Lawns withered, pipes burst, electronics failed. Even the air seemed heavier, as if the neighborhood was breathing slower. One night, the detective returned. Amma was waiting on her porch, eyes glowing faintly in the candlelight. "You still don't understand," she said. "This place took more than it gave. Your HOA thought they owned everything, but there are things no man can own. Land remembers. Spirits remember." Marcus stepped closer. "If this is revenge, end it. People are dying." Amma turned her face toward the wind. "I didn't kill them," she said. They heard their own guilt calling them. The ground trembled, faint but real. The lake behind the houses shimmered like glass. For a heartbeat, Marcus swore he saw faces under the water, pale and drifting, eyes open. He looked back at her. "Amma, what happens now?" She said only one word: balance. It happened on the night of the first winter storm. Wind howled through Birchwood like a living thing. Streetlights burst one by one. Power lines hissed. Those who hadn't moved away locked their doors and prayed. From every house, people heard the same sound, a low chant echoing from the direction of House 17. Inside that house, Amma stood in her circle of candles. Her eyes were closed. The red cloth on her porch fluttered like flame. The detective burst in, shouting, "Amma! Stop this!" She opened her eyes. "It's already done." Behind her, the walls began to shake. The air shimmered. Through the cracks in the wood, dark mist seeped, swirling, taking shape. Voices, dozens, hundreds, rose in harmony. The sound wasn't angry, it was mournful. Amma whispered, "They were here long before you built fences." Marcus stumbled back, shielding his face from the light. The candles flared white, then went out. Silence. When he looked again, Amma was gone. The room was empty, except for the small leather pouch on the floor, open and empty. By dawn, the storm was over. But Birchwood Estates was abandoned. Every house cracked. Every mailbox rusted. The lake had turned black and still. Detective Hall filed his final report. Greater than all residents evacuated. 2 confirmed missing. Cause of incident undetermined. Subject Arman Jerry, untraceable months. Later, construction crews tried to demolish the neighborhood. Machines broke down every time they approached House 17. Workers swore they saw a woman standing at the window, wrapped in red cloth, watching. No one returned after that. Years later, Birchwood Estates doesn't appear on most maps. The land is fenced off. Locals say the air there still smells like herbs after rain. Sometimes travelers who get lost nearby hear a soft voice carried by the wind, singing in a language they don't understand. And if you ever find yourself by the lake, you might notice a single house still standing, a red cloth fluttering quietly on the porch. That's House 17. And Amanjeri, the woman who cursed her American HOA, is still waiting for anyone foolish enough to disturb the peace she restored.